Hey everybody, today we've got some swing state polling from the New York Times and Siena College. But also, later on we've got a live stream planned for the upcoming primaries tonight, so drop by later on if you're interested. So let's get right into this battleground polling. I say it all the time, but it is just one poll, take it somewhat with a grain of salt. So the headline is Trump leads in 5 key states as young and non-white voters express discontent with Biden. And this poll was conducted April 28th to May 9th. The sample size was over 4,000 registered voters when you combine the 6 states. So let's take a look at this first part, which is just with registered voters. And Trump is leading in 4 of the 5 states. It's the usual battlegrounds, this time without North Carolina. The state Biden is leading in is Wisconsin. He's up there by 2, 47 to 45. But Pennsylvania, Trump is up 47 to 44. Then it really widens up. In Arizona, Trump is up by 7, 49 to 42. Michigan, same margin, 49 to 42. Georgia hits 10 points, 49 to 39. And Nevada even hits 12, 50 to 38. Those are incredibly massive margins considering this is supposed to be a close election. So Biden is clearly struggling there, but if you narrow it down to likely voters, then the race narrows up. But the results are the same with Trump leading in 5 of the 6 states. However, the states are not the same. With registered voters, Trump was trailing in Wisconsin. With likely, he's actually ahead. And in Michigan, with registered voters, Trump was clearly ahead there by 7. But with likely voters, it flips and Biden surges ahead. So for whatever reason, those 2 states flip when you go from registered to likely voters. Now, if you want to add in third-party candidates, this article doesn't really mention Kennedy too much, but it does say that when Kennedy is factored in, he averages about 10 points across the states and he pulls in equally from both Biden and Trump. Down here, this says the findings are mostly unchanged since these last polls in November. Since then, the stock market has gained 25%, Trump's criminal trial has started, and the Biden campaign has unleashed tens of millions of dollars in ads across the battleground states. I'm not sure why they keep saying Mr. Biden and Mr. Trump. It's a lot easier to just say Biden and Trump, but it sounds like outside of some slight variations, not too much has changed with the polling. Now, this next chart shows you the difference when you go from registered to likely voters. So in Arizona, Biden goes up 1, in Georgia he goes up 2, Michigan, he goes up a lot. He goes up 5. Nevada says +1, but it's both at 38. I'm assuming they rounded up. Pennsylvania +1, and Wisconsin, he actually goes down a point. Now Trump, on the other hand, in Arizona, stays at 49, but they give him +1. Georgia, he goes from 49 to 50. Michigan, he sinks from 49 to 46. Nevada, he goes 50 to 51. Pennsylvania, 47 to 48. And Wisconsin, he's up 2, 45 to 47. Next, they try to sum it up by saying the findings reveal widespread dissatisfaction with the state of the country and serious doubts about Biden's ability to deliver major improvements to American life. A majority of voters still desire the return to normalcy promised by Biden in the last campaign, but voters in battleground states remain particularly anxious, unsettled, and itching for change. Nearly 70% of voters say that the country's political and economic systems need major changes or even to be torn down entirely. Now, this next paragraph I think is one that kind of sums up the entire race. It says only a sliver of Biden's supporters, just 13%, believe the president would bring major changes in his second term, while even many of those who dislike Trump grudgingly acknowledge he would shake up an unsatisfying status quo. So I interpret that as Biden's going to maintain the course. The problem is there's so much dissatisfaction with that course. And on the other side, Trump comes off as a complete wild card, but shaking up the status quo might seem more appealing than what we're doing now. It then goes on to say that Biden appears much weaker in racially diverse states in the Sun Belt and Nevada. Meanwhile, he has maintained his support among older and white voters, and they are much less likely to demand fundamental changes to the system and far likelier to say that democracy is the most important issue to their vote. So that could be a trade-off. Maybe Biden rallies those voters and holds the blue wall. It's still obviously close enough to where you can't count Biden out. And we all remember back in 2016, those polls. Trump did not have a chance, but he ended up pulling it out. But the good news for Biden is he's got 5 or 6 months to go. If he looks this weak right now, it would seem like in order to help his cause, all he would have to do is do something other than what he's doing now. Then it goes on to talk about the economy, and I think this is a perfectly relevant quote from a voter in Nevada. He says, "It is concerning to me when I keep seeing press come out of the White House where they keep saying the economy is good. That's really weird because I'm paying more on taxes and more on groceries and more on housing and more on fuel, so that doesn't feel good." The economic sentiment does have some time to turn around, but I think it's true that the messaging I've seen from the White House is things are actually basically good if we actually just knew what we were talking talking about. And there's of course going to be some positive metrics. Everybody knows the unemployment rate is low, but there's no way that's going to make up for all the pain from the price increases over the past several years. Then we've got some abortion coverage. This says in a finding that will frustrate Democrats even as it presents opportunity for Biden, nearly 20% of voters blame him more than Trump for the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe versus Wade. They may be the kind of voters that the Biden campaign hopes to persuade as the campaign heats up. So 20% of voters blaming Biden. That to me is a little bit of a surprise. My assumption is there's just some anger in general at the party in power, but also Democrats did have the House, Senate, and the White House for 2 years. There might be some anger there at a missed opportunity. But down here, this is no surprise. It says the polls show abortion loomed as one of Trump's biggest vulnerabilities. On average, 64% of voters in battleground states said that abortion should be always or mostly legal, including 44% of Trump's own supporters. So that I think is a difficult challenge for Trump to try to find some path on abortion as to not completely alienate voters that are very strict on abortion, but while also understanding there are a lot of voters out there that want some sort of access to abortion. But it says here voters prefer Biden over Trump to handle the issue of abortion by 11 points, 49 to 38. But then it gets into voters that want to see significant political and economic changes in America. And we've got 14% that say the system needs to be torn down entirely, a massive 55% that want to see major changes, only 27% that want to see minor changes, and 2% that say no changes. And then they ask what kind of change Biden or Trump would bring to that system. 13% say Biden would tear down the system entirely, 11% say he would bring major changes, 39 minor changes, and 32% say nothing would change. With Trump, it's a different story. 25% say he would tear down the system entirely, 45% say he would bring major changes, 23 minor changes, and just 4% say nothing would change. So it's clear that based on this, Trump is the guy for change. But would the change be good or bad? Well, of the about 62% that say Biden would bring some sort of change, 24% think it would be somewhat or very good, 15% say neither, and 23% say it would be somewhat or very bad. Now, of the around 90% that say Trump would bring some sort of change, 43% say it would be somewhat or very good, 12% neither, and 35% say somewhat or very bad. So it looks like Trump is definitely going to bring change. It is kind of split, but more voters tend to believe it's going to be a positive change. So as I said earlier, there's a ton of dissatisfaction out there. Even the voters that are going to be hesitant about the kind of change Trump might bring, they might be willing to give him a chance just to shake things up. It does kind of remind me of 2016 all over again. The only difference is Trump was not really leading in many of those polls. Then it goes on to talk about where Biden is lacking among his own supporters. It says in the last poll, 11% of registered voters thought that Biden was not progressive or liberal enough. And while many liberal or progressive voters want major change, relatively few of these voters are defecting from Biden. Instead, Biden's losses are concentrated among moderate and conservative Democratic-leaning voters who nonetheless think that the system needs major changes or to be torn down altogether. And then they've got the situation with Israel. It says around 13% of voters who say they voted for Biden last time but do not plan to do so again. It said that his foreign policy or the war in Gaza was the most important issue to their vote. Just 17% of those voters reported sympathizing more with Israel over the Palestinians. So there's a little bit more here. I can't cover all of it, but at the end they do mention Trump's trial. It says just 29% of voters in battleground states said that they were paying a lot of attention to Trump's legal woes, and 35% thought that the trial was likely to end in a conviction. So that's kind of where we're at with the Siena College poll. But if you do want to take a look at the crosstabs, here's the crosstabs with registered voters. As always, all these links will be down below in the description. So there's a lot of data here. I haven't been able to look over all of it. Maybe there is something that stands out. And if you want to take a look at some of the demographic breakdown for this sample, it's right here. And they also have an FAQ how they conduct their polls. I know a lot of times people have a problem with using landline or cell phones. This generally explains what they do. Basically, they call randomly from a voter list. They do use landlines as well as cell phones, but 90% have been by cell phone. And fewer than 2% of people actually respond. So that might not seem like a lot, but they do try to explain how that should scale up. It's all here if you want a little bit more about the background of the process. So that is this poll, but if you want to take a look at all the states in one clean list, here it is on 538. This shows you the sample size, it shows you with registered and with likely voters, and it shows the percentages once you add in RFK and the other third parties. And I was going to throw in some more data about the U.S. Senate. They also polled those races, and as we've seen before, Democrats do lead in all those races, even though Trump is leading at the top of the ticket. So there's definitely the possibility for some crossover vote. It might seem odd that some people would vote for Trump, yet they don't want to see a Republican in the U.S. Senate, but that might be the case, and it's a possibility that Trump could win the White House and Democrats could hold hold 50 seats in the Senate. So we'll see what happens. There's a ton of time left. Be prepared for some things to change. But that's it for now. So let me know in the comments, what do you think about this poll? How about the differences between registered and likely voters? Do you buy that Trump has the clear advantage? Do you think the polls are right? Do you think Biden is going to come back? What are you expecting to see over the next 5 months? Let me know down below. On your way out, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to help support the channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.